And welcome back to the show. Well, I always get a little bit excited when there is a brand new Pallbearer album coming out, and I've had the chance to sit down and take a listen to their brand new album, Mind Burns Alive, and we thought to find out a little bit more about this album today, we would actually get Brett from the band on the phone right now to chat all about it. Welcome to the program, mate.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Now, mate, I gotta say, this is an absolutely brilliant album, but we're pretty lucky to have this album because it feels at times like this album was cursed for you guys. Tell us a little bit about how you feel now that it's about to come out.
Extreme relief. The inception of this record was in like 2019, so this is the longest interval between the beginnings and the actual release of material that we've ever had. And Devin, the other guitarist and Pallbearer, keeps saying, like, I always am afraid that I'm going to die before the album comes out. Now that it's recorded, like, he's just like, well, as long as he doesn't die between now and next Friday, I think he's good. He should probably stay away from highways, I guess.
Yeah.
Or something. But yeah, it's we had several, unfortunate circumstances that prevented us from our original plan, which was to record in 2020. So we persevered and finally got it done. So it feels great.
So going right back to those early days in 2019 when you first started working on this album, what kind of things were you guys talking about? Like, what did you have any goals for this album or things that you wanted to achieve while you were working on it?
Yeah, so 2019 ended up being an extremely prolific writing period, because after the Heartless touring cycle, and really even after the Foundation cycle, it felt like almost one continuous thing. Like, once we started touring for Foundations, it just kind of snowballed into this nonstop, tour, write, record, tour, kind of snowball effect thing. And we never really had proper downtime, and our lives were very chaotic. And so by the end of the Heartless touring cycle, we were all pretty burnt out, I guess. And so we took 2019 off to just kind of recuperate and work on new material. And so for the first time, we had these more stable lives, I guess, and it allowed us to be extremely creative. And so whenever we got to writing, these songs just poured out. And so what was to become Mind Burns Alive was happening at the same time as the Forgotten Days material. But there was a very obvious difference between, the batch of songs Forgotten Days, these songs, because the Forgotten Days songs were very direct, very riffy, very focused on the heavier the band, and we're tempo for us too. It was faster, heavier, and then on the other hand, there were these other group of songs which were more focused on negative space dynamics, quiet, quieter sections and subtlety. So the second group of songs decided to focus on Forgotten Day first, and kept working on these songs at the same time. But it was originally going to come a lot earlier. It did, so yeah.
Yeah, this is a very deep album as well. Like, when you listen to the lyrics, there's topics in there like mental breakdown and isolation, which are things that so many people went through during the pandemic. Can you talk us through a little bit about the songwriting process with this? Because it almost seems preemptive of what a lot of people went through during that time. But as you just said, a lot of these tracks were actually written in 2019.
Yeah, it does seem kind of eerie. Yeah, songs about loneliness and isolation. Like, yeah, it's kind of strange because we were all felt pretty isolated and lonely during the pandemic. But yeah, this, I don't know. I mean, I think those types of feelings can happen at any time, you know, pandemic or not.
Yeah.
But it certainly felt amplified by that situation. And I don't know at what point, because Joe wrote 3 of the songs, I wrote 3 of the songs, and I don't know at what point before or during or after he was writing his lyrics. So I don't know to what degree that type of situation had on his lyrics, but yeah, it's, I don't know. I think we're often very conceptual when it comes to a group of songs and how we want to approach each album as an overall theme, I guess, and compositionally. So it's this one just kind of arose on its own, separately between the two of us. And when we got together to discuss it, it was kind of remarkable that the material that we had been writing was so in sync in terms of subject matter.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah. I also read a quote from you as well where you said that these songs have a deeper exploration of dynamics and sonic color than anything that you guys have done previously. I was wondering if you could tell our listeners a little bit about that. Was that something that you guys planned, or was that something that just happened organically while you were working on the album?
Well, it was organic to begin with, and then we, intentionally focused on those elements. Like I was saying, when we discovered, or we realized that there was a marked difference between the Forgotten Days songs and what was to become Mind Burns Alive, we realized we had a series of songs that, were a lot more subtle, less focus on, riffage and bludgeoning, and when we saw that we had the seeds of an album that kind of had those elements of our sound put more towards the forefront, we intentionally focused on the arrangements in ways that would, maximize the efficacy of those parts and the emotional heft and the clarity of the emotional language through the music.
So how long after these tracks were written did you actually sit down to record? Was there 3 or 4 years gap in there?
Well, there was, the original plan was to record in spring 2020. Obviously that didn't happen. And then we had studio time booked for May of 2022, and Joe at the time lived in New York and would come down to rehearse and whenever we would record or go on tour or whatever. But as he came down, as we were finishing the final rehearsals, I started feeling extremely sick, and turned out I had COVID, so I wasn't able to be at the recording sessions, which is kind of a big deal. And then by the end of, they tried to track drums anyway, and by the end of that, everyone else had COVID too. So that didn't quite work out. So yeah, and then we did it practically a year to the day, I think. In 2023, we scheduled another recording session, and that time it was, let's say, quite successful. So but it was easy, especially after the aborted 2022 attempt, it was pretty discouraging. But I think, in hindsight, it ended up being a positive thing because it allowed us to, uh, I don't know, hear the songs in a different way. Because we still had drum tracks from 2022, and I had, attempted to record some guitar tracks on my own to some of those tracks and the drum tracks from 2022, and I just wasn't really feeling it, and it allowed us to go back and like do some final arrangement changes to the songs, which I think elevated them in a way that they wouldn't have been had we been successful in like completing the record before. So despite all these things that seemed like they were setbacks happening along the way, I think they all came together in a really like surprisingly positive way to to elevate the final result.
Yeah. And you built your own studio, I understand, as well, in Little Rock at that time, as well, which meant that everybody was able to come down there and work. How did that change things for you guys?
Well, we finished we did the basic tracking at a fellowship hall here, which is the studio that we recorded Heartless in, and some other stuff too, like EPs and whatnot. But yeah, we did the basic tracking there, and then having our own studio space to work in after that allowed us a lot more freedom to experiment and layer, focus on like the details of layering, and focus on like tone, and not be pressed for time. So I think the drum sounds particular that we got at Fellowship, or I think this is the best sounding drums we've had, and the guitars, like the rhythm guitars, sound excellent. So definitely not underselling the impact that Fellowship had on the final record.
Yeah.
But like having the freedom to experiment in our own spaces and work on at our own pace without being on the clock, I think was really beneficial.
Definitely. Well, with the album coming out now, I'm aware we're running out of time very, very quickly, but with the album coming out now, what have you guys got planned for the rest of this year and going into next year? Are you looking to get back out on the road once again?
We are. We're going to tour North America from June through like August. And then we're going to Europe in the fall, and for a pretty long tour. And I believe there's plans to come to Australia sometime early-ish next year. So, and probably go back to Europe, and who knows? We'll be touring for a while, probably the next like year or so on this record. So if you no matter where you are, you'll probably have a chance to see us on the road soon.
Definitely. Well, mate, I cannot wait for that Australian tour. I've been wanting to see you guys play live for a long time now, so hopefully we will get to see you back in Australia very, very soon. But to finish off the interview, what would you like to say to people out there who are about to sit down and take a listen to the album in its entirety when it comes out?
Man, I would say is put on some headphones, get you a beverage or something of some sort, tea or something stronger if that's your bag, and really just like pay attention to the details. We put a lot of work into the soundscapes and the overall just like the sound world of the record, and so I think it rewards an active listening experience.